Hey guys, Andrew McFarlane here from StartAJuiceBar.com. Hope you're feeling amazing, happy, healthy, and inspired to launch your businesses or expand your existing businesses. Today we are talking about your juice shelf life. This is a question that I get a lot. People are always curious, how long does a juice last in a refrigerator or grab and go? And we're going to dive into the nuance of this. It's not a simple answer, but it's something that by the time you're done watching this, you're going to have a lot more clarity around. But before we dive into today's topic of conversation, if you guys are new to the channel and you don't know who I am and you don't know what we do, for over the last 10 years, myself and our companies had the pleasure of supporting hundreds of entrepreneurs all over the world launch and scale successful juice bar concepts, smoothie bar concepts, acai bowl businesses, healthy cafes, and the like, as well as running our own businesses in this arena. So all the information that you're getting here is actually coming from experience. And before we dive in, a last and final request, press the like button. These videos take a lot of time and energy to create. Pressing the like button is free. It is a way of you showing support to this channel and to get this information out to more people and expand the message of health and well-being. So let's dive in. In this conversation, I want to kind of set a foundation. There are a number of things that are going to play a big factor in your juice's shelf life. Okay, number one is how you actually process that product. So how do you process the juice? Are you cold pressing? Are you using a centrifugal juicer? Are you using something in between? That's the first thing. The second thing is, what is the recipe? Okay, we're going to dive into that even more deeply. And then the third thing is, how is it being stored? Okay, so these are the three primary things that you have to take into consideration, and we're going to get into each one of these in more detail. So the first thing, let's talk about equipment. Okay, you guys may be aware that there are different kinds of juicers, and each style of juicer is going to give you a different quality of juice. And what's related to that quality of juice is the shelf life. Because, for example, if you're using a centrifugal juicer, and I've seen this in the past, which I highly discourage, but I've walked into juice bars and they've had juice that's made from a centrifugal juicer in a grab and go, and I can tell because of the way the juice looks. It's separated, the color is not vibrant, and so this is an issue because when you're making juice with a centrifugal juicer, the shelf life is really a lot less than if you're cold pressing or slow pressing with, let's say, a hydraulic press or an auger masticating juicer. So this is something I don't recommend. If you're going to use a centrifugal juicer, that's fine, and know that it's really quick to process someone's order. A lot of times the reason somebody will put juice in a grab-and-go fridge is because the juice takes a lot of time to prep ahead of time, and you can't just simply make juices to order. Also, it does incentivize customers to purchase juices or more than they were thinking of when they walked into the store. Maybe they walked into the store for a smoothie and they see a juice, it's looking really beautiful to them, and they grab that on their way out. So having a grab and go and putting products inside of it has that extra benefit. So this is the thing you need to be aware of. A juice through a centrifugal juicer generally isn't going to last much longer than maybe, let's say, 24 hours. Now this depends on the recipe. And like I said, we're going to dive into that a little bit more. And it also depends on the refrigerator that's stored inside of. Okay? Now, a juice from a masticating juicer or hydraulic press is processed differently. The nutrient content is generally higher. This is going to preserve the shelf life of the juice. The other thing too is because of the process, it doesn't oxidize as much. A centrifugal juicer, on the other hand, because of the way that the vegetables and the fruits are processed, they're aerated, they're cut with blades, and this is going to lead to the product oxidizing faster and more. And the process of oxidation is the process of cell deterioration, right? So this is going to reduce the shelf life. So on one hand, you have a centrifugal juicer, which the shelf life of that kind of product is going to be in the range of a day, give or take, depending on the recipe, depending on how it's stored. And then you have a masticating juice and a hydraulic press, cold press juice, which is going to be on average around 3 days. Could be longer. Now we're going to dive into more of the details of all of this because a lot of times each product is going to have its own shelf life depending on the other two factors that we're going to dive into. So next, let's talk about storage. And also storage as it relates to process. Now, when people are making a product, they're making a juice, they're making it in a kitchen. It's going to probably be, a little bit colder than room temperature because the AC is on in most kitchens, I hope. But if it's really hot inside of your environment, then guess what? That's going to play a role in deteriorating the quality of that juice. The other thing that you have to think about is the product itself. This is something I didn't really mention, but it's kind of a side caveat, is where is the product coming from? How high quality and how nutrient dense is that product? Because if it's a product that's been shipped halfway across the world, it's low quality, it's not organic, it hasn't been grown well, then you're also dealing with something that's not going to have as much nutrients inside of it and therefore integrity, and then the shelf life is also going to be reduced because of that as well. So talking about sort of process and storage. If the environment you're in is really hot, that's going to play a role. If it's colder, that's also going to increase the shelf life. Also, how long is the juice sitting in that kitchen before it gets transported to a refrigerator? If you're processing juice and you've got something sitting on the counter for 30 minutes to an hour, guess what? In that period of time, the juice is deteriorating. It's losing its integrity. So you want to make sure that when you're processing your product, it goes from being juiced into being bottled or stored, however you're planning to store it, into a refrigerator as soon as possible. Okay? That's when it comes to the actual process. The next thing is, as I've been alluding to, when you're storing it, how cold is your refrigerator? Right? Some people's refrigerators are higher quality, lower quality, hard for the compressors to get cold quickly. Having a refrigerator that is cooler and has a lower temperature, and now granted, your refrigerators are only going to get so cold before things start to freeze and lose their integrity in that dimension, so there is a sweet spot, right? So you don't want your refrigerator to be at the place where things are freezing, because it's not a freezer, but you don't want it to be so warm that things are not maintaining an elongated shelf life overall, okay? Now, different places, I know we have people all around the world that watch this channel, different health departments have different requirements around their standard for actual temperatures that your refrigerator needs to maintain. So you need to check that out with your local health department so that you're in compliance with that. So this is when it comes to storage. And then lastly, which is really a huge factor, is the recipe itself, okay? There are certain ingredients that are known, and you guys might be health connoisseurs and a lot more savvy than the average person, but you might know things like lemon, things like ginger. These are naturally antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral ingredients. Vegetables, fruits, right? These are things that are in the constitution of these ingredients. They are naturally not allowing bacteria to proliferate anything as quickly. Now, it's not to say that ginger can't go bad or lemon juice can't go bad. It just takes a lot longer than things like carrot juice, apple juice. Because what's the difference? Well, there's a few qualities that these ingredients have, but in general, the higher the sugar content of your juice, the quicker it has the likelihood of spoiling. If you have something that's just strictly carrot juice, it's not going to last as long in most instances as something that's strictly green, like a celery juice, okay? A celery juice is going to take a lot longer to spoil and go bad than apple juice or carrot juice or something that's a lot sweeter, because bacteria love sugar, okay? A lot of times in this industry, what you'll find is that people will have an average shelf life for a product. A lot of times for a cold pressed juice, it would be something like 3 days. From the time that it's made, they'll have a 3-day expiration date, or some people always also title this as, use by date or good through date, right? So you want to have, and this is a requirement, at least in America, you have to have an expiration date on all of your products based on when it's made and the shelf life for those items. So this is sort of a standard number that people will say 3 days, okay? Now, does this mean that all of your products are not good after 3 days? No. Does it also mean that all of your products are good until 3 days? Not really. So like I said, it depends on everything that you've done beforehand, how that product is stored, and what that product actually is. Because if it's just a straight carrot juice, it could last 3 days, but it's a little bit more difficult for a juice like that to be good 3 days later after it was made than a straight cucumber juice or celery juice. And then you have different recipes with a combination thereof, right? We're not going to get into all the specifics around the nuance of recipes, but know that it isn't just because you have a specific expiration date on something doesn't mean that that's the date that it actually expires. Now, some health departments will have, once again, different requirements around raw juice. and what date you have to put on that product. Overall, when you have a product that lasts longer, you have a higher likelihood of selling it. Now, there is a big difference between when someone should drink something and when someone can drink something, okay? Just because something is still good 5 days later, does that mean that's when you should sell it? Ideally, no. You want your product to be as fresh as possible. And a lot of this is going to be related to your actual production and making sure you don't overproduce so you don't have spoilage, okay? But you have to be aware that even though you can do something, doesn't mean that you should, because customers are going to want a product that's high quality, fresher, that they can consume. The other thing that I want to talk about is there's different products that you're going to make. Now, categorically, we've been talking about juice, but in the liquid and beverage umbrella, there are things known as wellness shots. Now, wellness shots, because, like I mentioned earlier, generally have ingredients that are really high in antibacterial qualities, antifungal qualities, antiviral qualities. These are the reasons that people take them. They're concentrated, they're strong. If you had a wellness shot that was strictly apple, lemon, or something like, ginger, lemon, cayenne pepper, right, oil of oregano, and that was all it was, guess what? That's going to have a very long shelf life, much more than 5 days even in most instances. Might even last 7 to 10 days, depending on the previous factors. So that's really beneficial to your business if you make these kinds of products, to be able to make them in bulk, and they'll have a longer shelf life. But overall, you're going to want to get familiar with this for your menu and your recipes, okay? Something that you can do just as a recommendation is, as you're testing your menu and you're putting things together, actually date things, put them in the fridge. You can break them into different bottles, right? Where you have a control group where you actually put them in smaller bottles. Let's say you make a 16-ounce drink, put it in, a few, maybe 4, smaller 2-ounce to 4-ounce bottles, and after a certain period of time, open it and test it and see if it's still good, okay? And then you're not going to want to keep opening and closing, because that's another element that's going to oxidize. When you open a bottle of juice, at that point it's exposed to the air, more bacteria is going to get inside of it, and that's going to increase the speed of spoilage. And so this is why you would have different bottles that you'd want to open on every day after that to see how it's doing, right? So you'd have that one, you'd open it up, you test it, see how it's going. You'd want to do it again, right? Figure out with that bottle when it goes bad, and then you're going to want to move on to the next one and see and count the days, see how long it goes before that juice actually spoils. But also test the quality of it, because like I said before, it's not just when is this juice bad and not good to drink, which is not the ideal scenario to sell a product in. It's actually, when would you still enjoy drinking it? Just because you can sell something doesn't mean that you should, okay? So overall, as I'm sure you guys have grasped, there's a lot of factors that are going to play into your shelf life. The other thing which we haven't discussed here, which is really more for people who are wholesaling, which you can do, is the process of pasteurizing or high pressure pascalizing your product, right? When you do this, you can have a juice that has, depending on how long you pressurize it, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. Granted, doing this is going to change the constitution of your juice in a significant way. It's going to change the flavor profile. It's going to change a lot of different things. So this may or may not apply to you if you're not planning on wholesaling and you're really planning on making a juice that's more of a raw juice, which is what this conversation has been more about. So I hope this has been insightful for you guys to understand that, there are averages. Your specific location, where you are in the world, is going to have different requirements around what you're allowed to do in terms of labeling. So do research on that with your health department. And just know that you shouldn't be in a situation, ideally, if your production process is dialed in, where you are having a juice on the shelf for 3 days and more, because it means that you've overproduced by 300%. You should be able to know what you need in a given day. Now, granted, there are advantages to cold pressing in larger batches less often, because that's going to save you on labor. So there's a lot of these elements that have to come into kind of convergence for you to find out the production process that works for you based on your sales, based on the freshness that you want to achieve, based on the spoilage that you want to avoid. There's a number of factors. So as always, if you guys don't know, as I mentioned earlier, we have a full spectrum development firm, and consulting business where we can support you in your full spectrum development. So reach out to me at Andrew@StartAJuiceBar.com if you want to talk about how we can support you with your business. We'd love to have that conversation. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel and you haven't liked the video yet, you definitely want to do that now. Press the like button. Really supports the channel a lot. If you find this content valuable, would appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments, put it in the comment box below. If you want to just tell us that you've enjoyed the content, please do that as well. Love to hear from you guys and build this relationship with our community. And then beyond that, we have a podcast on Spotify, on iTunes. Okay, so check us out there if you want to have more passive listening, or maybe while you're cleaning the house, you can listen to our podcast. And then lastly, follow us on Instagram at StartAJuiceBar. We're releasing content there every single day. You can direct message us if you prefer to communicate on that platform as well. Check us out so you can just stay up to date and keep your mind fresh in terms of developing your business and making sure that you're as successful as possible. Our mission is really to create a world where there are more juice bars and healthy food service businesses than there are fast food cafes and restaurants that are not supporting humanity's health. So together we can make that a reality. Until next time, this is Andrew McFarlane with StartAJuiceBar.com. I'll see you guys soon. I hope you guys have been enjoying the content. If you're in a place where you are really inspired to launch your juice business, but you're not exactly sure what steps to take, for you, we've created a free ebook, The 15 Steps to Starting Your Juice Bar from Scratch. Now, this is going to give you an overview of all the steps that you need to take in order to launch your business. If you want to go even deeper, we created an online course, the Juice Bar Master Blueprint. This is going to go into great detail into every single aspect of the business, starting from the very beginning all the way to actually launching a successful juice business. There's links for both of these in the description below. I know you guys will find a lot of value out of them. As always, wishing you a lot of success, and I'll see you guys in the next video.